I am pretty sure that you have a Dell laptop. It might be also some other ones, but I've experienced it only on Dell. This Dell worked fine, even though it's an older model. It happened to be Latitude D620, but I get this error message. Basically, it's telling me that I don't have the right power supply. And so I have to hook up something better than 65 watt. Well, this is a 90 watt power supply. And so what's the problem? Well, let me show you what the problem is. So where did I put the power supplies cord? Here we go. So here it is. As you can see, it is a 90 watt. Hopefully this phone's gonna focus better. Why is it not focusing? Well, it doesn't want to focus, but anyway, take my word for it. It says it right here. It's a 90 watt right here. 90 watt, 90 watt, okay? Or 4.62 amps at 19.5 volts. The problem is sometimes, not always, is in this cord. The cord, as you can see, has 3 wires, not 2 wires, but 3 wires. The middle wire is actually a signal wire that is that pin inside this this cable. And I know I'm trying to focus it. I apologize. For some reason, my 1-to-1 for autofocusing ain't working for some unknown reason, but that's what it is. So what I did is I took an X-Acto knife and I started very carefully peeling off first the black layers, and then I started peeling on this side the white layer a little bit, which got me to this this one here, which is a minus. I'm sorry, this is the positive 19.5 volts, and then the black one on the right side is negative, or ground you can call it, but and the middle one has very small measurements. If you're measuring it against the plus or against the ground. And so I've learned the hard way that this is what the problem is. So instead of buying another 90 watt one, I figured out I have nothing to lose. So I went and I opened it up. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to fix it, okay? It's simpler than you think, but be careful. If you're working this X-Acto knife, you can cut yourself. And you will probably need a hot gun if you're going to do it my way, or if you're going to do it your way, you're going to need probably some heat shrink tubing and some other things to put it back together, okay? If you do hot gun glue like I'm gonna still secure it with heat shrink tubing as well. So that's what we're gonna fix right now. This is a Dell connector, and there are 3 wires. There is this little thin wire in the middle, which looks white. Then there's the black wire on the bottom, and another white wire which is on the top. They're both shielded wires, except the middle one, which is the center wire, and that's the one that produces the amperage to the Dell laptop computer. So this one was broken here, and then it stopped working, even though the power supply was just fine. So if you take this apart, you can resolder it back in, re-insulate it, and put some heat shrink on it, and you should get some more months or years even out of it. So make sure that when you're working on this, do not cut the wires, and make sure that you insulate the 3 wires from each other. Okay, I secured my camera on top of my laptop, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to fix this, okay? So as you can see, the insulation is gone here, and there's some broken insulation here and here. By the way, that's how I found it. I did not dig this out. It was secured with like 6 layers of heat shrink tubing, which is not the way to fix it. If you have like this is where it's the weakest part of these connectors. I think Dell should put a reinforcement thing in here so it doesn't break in here, but this is where it always breaks. This wire, or this wire, okay? And so there's basically, it's a double shielded wire, insulated. Each of these is insulated. Now, how I'm going to fix it is, I love this Ryobi hot gun, And as you can see, it's cooking already. So I slowly start fixing first the insulation, and I'm not applying any pressure. As you can see, my finger is off the trigger. I'm just using what it's oozing out. And once I run out of that, I'll squeeze the trigger a little tiny bit. Not a whole lot, because way too much will come out. So I want to first fix this insulation. Okay? And I will put on plenty here, not like horribly a lot, but plenty to cover the wires, or the insulation in this case. And then accidentally, as you can see, I already squeezed in between that wire and the center wire, and the center and this wire. And I'm going to fill this gap in here. Now I'll start going into this area here where it's the weakest part, and I'm going to start filling it as well. And I apologize if it's not sharp, because I don't know what's going on with my camera today, my phone. It has several settings and cannot get the autofocus working. Anyway, so as you can see, is I'm spreading it everywhere, including all the way up to here. The reason you do it in small layers is that otherwise it just falls through, because it's so hot that it will just melt the hole through, right? So you don't want that. And then I blow air on it. To cool it. And now you can see the insides. And as you can see, there is a gap between both. But I'm going to fill it up nicely with thin layers of nice and hot glue. Hot glue gun is used. As I mentioned, I'm using this Ryobi. They don't pay me, by the way, to spread in my videos that this is the best glue gun I have, because number one, it runs off of my regular batteries. Second of all, it was like $30. And third of all, you can actually melt this, that it's like liquid. The hot glue material becomes liquid. And I use that when I'm filling up empty space, or when I'm filling up gaps where I want to make sure that it gets there, so I don't turn the switch off. Now I will turn it off, and it will start cooling off. And as it's cooling off, I'm going to start applying and trying to make this part here round. And I'm going to make a little bit here also. As you can see, I'm squeezing a little bit at a time, and I'm working that hot glue, melt plastic basically. Now be careful when you're doing this, because you will burn yourself. If this stuff gets on your skin, it will burn you, okay? And as you can see, I'm still off, but there is enough energy left in that heating chamber that it's still melting plenty well my hot glue. And I'm gonna put a nice little rim here, because I'm gonna put a heat shrink tubing all over this, and I'm gonna demonstrate how to do that. And now I'm gonna reinforce the cable a little bit farther out, because now it's not as hot as it was earlier, and I don't want this cable to break again. So, or if it breaks, hopefully it will break after I'm dead. But I'm from Europe, as you know. If you went to tonysfan.com, or one word, no apostrophe, no hyphens, no spaces, you can read about me and how I escaped from communism and socialism, and when I did that. But I dislike anything that tells me what to do, and I did not want them to tell me what to do. One time, United States and Russia and the Eastern Bloc was enemies, and now it seems to me that some things don't work that way. So, but that's my own personal political thing, and as a matter of fact, I no longer keep track of political things. just so you know why I escaped. I've been here for 40 years. And I love my country. Absolutely love my country. And as you can see, it starts looking pretty darn nice. But I'm going to try to make it, like here it's flatter. So I'm going to try to increase the diameter in the low area. And again, I'm just building up little layers. I'll turn it over and do the other side. Because if you put too much, what happens, it melts and then it leaks and it does all kinds of funny things. So I want to make it as round as I can make it. And right now it's, as you can see, there's missing material here and on this side. So I'm going to keep adding a little bit, and that's why I'm also cooling down the I don't have the power anymore on my heat gun here. As you can see, it's still powered off. There's no light there. And as it's cooling, it's still very malleable, but it is not going to leak. It's not going to take advantage of the gravity, as I call it. Because once you melt hot glue far enough, okay, this side starts looking nice, and this side needs a little reinforcement. Okay. And sometimes you do want the gravity because it helps you to round things up. But then you need to constantly rotate the thing, and then it sometimes kind of settles where you don't necessarily want it to settle. So that's about as far as I'm gonna go. Because, by the way, if you overdo it, you can always take a little X-Acto knife and very carefully shave it off. I lick my finger, put a little bit of moisture on it, and then sometimes, if I'm not sure if it's settled, I test it with my finger, and if it's not sticking through the moisted finger on the skin, then that means it's cooling down. And sometimes you can actually reshape it a little bit. And so then I lick both thumb and my finger, and also embed my fingerprints, so when somebody is gonna do a forensic on this, they're gonna go, look at that, the guy put a fingerprint in there. Who knows how he looked like 1 million years ago, or 600 million, I don't know. Okay, so now, as you can see, this is done. This part is done. Okay? I'm going to prepare the heat shrink tubing, and I'll be right back. Now you see, I have quite a few more of these. I have them selected by how much they shrink, the sizes, and colors. And I am a practical person, so I'm going to first try to put a black one and see if that's going to be big enough diameter. And if it is, then that's what we're going to go with. But if I have to put a yellow or orange that fits, well, that's exactly what I'm going to go with. So here is the thickest black one I have is this size. And I'm going to show you a little trick in case that it's not going to be big enough. And I don't think you've ever seen it unless you watched my videos, because I have disclosed this before. So as you can see, it goes in there pretty well. So I'm gonna go ahead and push on it, and don't do it when it's still warm, because it's gonna stick to the tubing and you're gonna be out of luck. I got my needle nose pliers. Be careful not to break that little connector. And I'll show you, by the way, where the, oh, there we go. Okay, so as you can see, I did a little overhang over here, so it's a little longer than where I want it to be, you know, attached at or shrinked at. So I'm going to close this just for time being, because I don't want to spill it. So I'll take the other ones and put them over here on the table. And then what I use is I have several different heat guns, but this is a quick little fix, and I use these little torches, and you just hit it. And as you can see, it's shrinking pretty darn good. Don't leave it on one spot, because if you do, you will burn the heat shrink tubing. And as, of course, you know that the heat shrink tubing only goes down by 1, so it's 1-to-1. So if you get heat shrink tubing that's too big, like on this end it's too big, I basically heat it up a little bit more aggressive, but I keep moving, and I want to see where does it ends at. And sometimes what I do is I try not to burn it, which, by the way, once in a while I still do. Then I let go, quickly lick my fingers, and I try to get this tubing a little smaller. And if it's not working, you can leave it, and or you can cut this open, or you can squirt in here a little bit of that hot gun glue. I call it glue, but goo. And so I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to turn the Ryobi on, and I'm going to put the nose in here like that. And then once it lets me squeeze it in, oh, it still lets me squeeze it in. That's good. So then I have a nice little edge. And so I'll work it a little bit, kind of sloping it from the thinner ends. To here. Because I don't really care that it doesn't look professional, as long as it does a professional job. There we go. Okay, I'll turn this off again. As you can see, it stayed nice and hot, and I'm licking my fingers, and then you can shape it any way you like it. It depends on how much temperature your fingers are willing to take. But I see this lasting a long time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in the power supply, which was unplugged until now. And as you can see, it goes in this direction or this direction. Doesn't really matter. It'll fit in. I think it fits in both ways. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. I usually don't take this apart. I'll take the lighter away. So now, as you can see, the power supply has a green light. So that means that I have power going. Now, the voltage, by the way, in here is not between the outside and that little tiny pin, but it is between the inside shiny part and the outside shiny part. And don't put a voltmeter too deep in there, otherwise you're going to burn your power supply. I've burned one power supply that way, and I'm not worried about admitting it, because it will still work with the dual prong. But where our three points of measurements, which is the voltage on the outside is a negative, the inside wall is positive, and then that little middle piece actually tells it the wattage. So the power supply is in communications with your laptop. Okay, I'm going to pause it for a while, and I'm going to show you that it's working. So I'm going to power up the laptop. I put the fixed power supply end there, because I didn't have to fix the power supply itself. I just had to fix the end, which was that's where the wire was broke on the middle connector, which is not there's no voltage. There's, well, There's like 2 point something ohms, but there isn't any voltage as such, only probably some frequency that a normal multimeter can't measure. And then when it loads, it should work. It's booting a little slowly, so I hope it's gonna go fast, but we'll find out. I tested it before I put the glue around it, so now I hope just that's gonna keep working like it's supposed to before I hot glue gun it. I call it hot glue gun it. And this is taking a little bit longer, but that's what happens when you unplug it from the power supply and it's unplugged for long enough time than when the first time when you boot Windows. So as you can see, there's no error message from the BIOS. By the way, the error message happens from the BIOS, so it's a BIOS thing. Now you can disable it, but if you disable it, it won't tell you the error message that you are not having strong enough power supply. But what it will do, it will run your laptop at half the speed. That's the other trick, by the way. You will lose speed as soon as you unplug it from power supply, because on the battery it runs at half speed. Okay, and that's basically true on most laptops. Maybe not so on some other ones. So, and as you can see, it's turned completely off. I'll power it one more time, and this time it should work a little faster because the power supply is still plugged in. See how much faster it went? And the laptop, even though it's old and it's running Windows 10 Pro, I usually use 10 Pro on all of my computers, it will work faster, and sure enough, it works faster. So I just put in my PIN, and there it is. I'm logged into my Windows. So that's how you fix it. All right, I'm going to also disclose that little trick that if the shrink tubing isn't big enough, what you do. Okay, so let me do it right now. Okay, I promised you that I have this little trick. So let's say that I would have had only this size and I could not squeeze it over something that's too thick. And so the way you do it is you take needle nose pliers. Sometimes you have to use the really skinny small ones. And do this carefully, by the way, and rotate this inside the tubing. So let's say we start at noon. Let's consider this position north or noon. And I'll expand it a little bit. And be careful, don't expand too much. You don't want to break the ends right there, okay? And then you push it a little farther and do it again until you see the ends of your pliers. Okay? And if that doesn't work, then rotate it 25 degrees or 40 degrees, whatever you manage. Because sooner or later, it's going to allow you to see the ends of the pliers, just like here. And so now, look at how much larger, and I just been working it for a few seconds. Look at how much larger it is compared to what it was, okay? So you can expand this quite a bit, and then the quicker you put it on, because it's a memory material, before you heat it, of course. But I'm going to show you that even though I already expanded it quite a bit, I'm going to expand this one even more. So it's sometimes you can do twice as big. Now this particular material is slightly different than this Chinese stuff, which is this material right here. So on this one here, these needle nose pliers only will go like this far, but it will show you that you can even do these inexpensive ones. And the reason you sometimes have that is because your solder joint is maybe a little bigger than the little tiny heat shrink you're using. And just be gentle with it. Don't break it. The first time you'll probably break it, but you'll learn. And so look at this. Look at that size and look at this size. It's twice as wide than that. So you can actually stretch it a little bit more probably, but you have to just basically test it and see. You know, I can almost put it on my little finger. Anyway, and then you can just put it back if you, let's say, end up not using it. it will still work. So there's nothing wrong with it. And once you put it on whatever you're using it for, it will then heat shrink really nicely, and you will not be able to tell the difference. Also, on these little inexpensive little sets, these tabs break off, so I always use these little nice rubber bands. I double that up and then stretch it nicely, so as you can see my other ones, I'm not just preaching something, but I also do what I say. Okay, so I hope you liked the video, and go watch my other videos as well. I'll be talking to you in the next video. Bye-bye. Just so you know that I don't lie, that I have things everywhere, I'm gonna have to make a video about my shop, my labs in here. Anyway, yes, for some reason it's not focusing well today. Anyway, as you can see, I have quite a few of these heat shrink tubings, and then all kinds of different other things. I'll make a video one day and I'll explain all about my beautiful little gizmodos, I call them. Every one of these is a gizmodo. That's my newest one. I will show that one here soon. Anyway, it's a benchtop meter, but one of the nicest ones you can get out there.